Live from Melbourne, this is 7 Afternoon News with Rebecca Madden.
Good afternoon. Ukraine's capital Kiev is coming under missile attack as we go to air this afternoon. The Russian invasion is entering a second day. Nearly 140 people are confirmed dead, but the death toll is rising by the hour. Russia has captured Chernobyl power plant as it launches its military operation across a wide part of the country. Now, this is a live look at Kiev, where the sun is just coming up. Several large blasts have been heard in the centre of the city, with journalists on the ground saying the city is under heavy attack. People have spent the day sheltering in underground train stations. These are the latest pictures of Ukraine under attack. A Ukraine plane was shot down and 5 people are believed to have been killed. Apartment buildings have also been targeted. 7 News reporter Chris Reason begins our coverage.
Well, this is the border control point at Krakovets and the border between Ukraine and Poland. Poland being just 100 metres further up the road here. And as you can see, thousands of cars and people queuing to get across that border tonight. It has been like this. We arrived several hours ago now, and this traffic has not moved much. And the queue, I can tell you, goes for kilometres back that way. This is the consequence of what has been happening within Ukraine today after the Russians invaded by land, sea and air. Thousands of Ukrainians deciding to pack up what they could, grab what they could, get into their cars and head for the border and safety.
It's the 21st century, of course, and no one ever thought that this would be happening in the middle of Europe. It's heartbreaking because I think people of Ukraine deserve better. They have chosen their path. They want to live in a free, democratic state.
Now, the Polish authorities have been preparing for this moment for weeks. The central government there had put out word to all of the provincial governments along the border, telling them to prepare for this influx of refugees. And Poland's opened up 8 border crossings, but this is something that's not just being seen on the Polish border, but of course on the other borders with other neighbouring countries around Ukraine. We're talking about Romania, Hungary, Moldova, all of them getting ready to accept what is expected to be not just hundreds of thousands of refugees, but one aid agency estimating potentially millions as this conflict goes on through weeks and months to come.
Chris Reason reporting there. Australia has slapped Russia with even tougher sanctions as part of a global effort to punish Russia for its actions in Ukraine. Political reporter Taylor Aitken has the latest from Canberra.
Good afternoon. Well, not even 24 hours after outlining new sanctions, Prime Minister Scott Morrison has gone one step further as part of an Allied-backed response to Russia's decision to invade Ukraine. Australia imposing further sanctions on Russia's wealthy parliamentary elite while also extending restrictions on key Belarusian individuals. These sanctions, economic weapons designed to tighten the vice around Russia, with Scott Morrison reaffirming no Australian troops will be deployed to the conflict zone. Instead, Australia will provide non-lethal military support, equipment and medical supplies to NATO forces.
We will work along with our partners for a rolling wave of sanctions and continuing to ratchet up that pressure on Russia. This is all about ensuring they get cut off, and that is the price that is paid.
The Prime Minister pointing the finger at China, accusing Beijing of backing Russia in this conflict by easing trade restrictions, with Defence Minister Peter Dutton adding China refusing to condemn Russia's actions should serve as a warning to the rest of the world.
At a time when the Western world is actually imposing sanctions on Russia, the Chinese government is easing trade restrictions on Russia. You don't go and throw a lifeline to Russia in the middle of a period when they're invading another country.
President Xi and President Putin announced only a few weeks ago in Beijing this unholy alliance between Russia and China. Really should be an alarm bell to the rest of the world.
Meanwhile, the Australian government has backed international calls that would see Russia stripped of hosting upcoming sporting events, including the Formula One Grand Prix in September. Scott Morrison praising Australian Olympic aerial skier Danielle Scott for her decision to withdraw from the World Cup, which is set to begin tomorrow, northwest of Moscow.
Now, to give you a sense of what's been happening over the past few hours, CNN has obtained audio of what's purporting to be a Russian warship sending a warning to a Ukrainian border guards to surrender before taking them out. Now, we are going to play the clip for you, but we do warn some viewers may find the content distressing.
По избежанию кровопролития и неоправданных жертв. В противном случае по вам будет нанесен бомбово-штурмовой удар. Длинный остров. Я русский корабль. Повторяю. Предлагаю сложить оружие, сдаться, иначе по вам будет нанесен удар. Как поняли меня? Прием.
Wow, the Ukrainians are defiant, Oren. They aren't backing down.
Two things were certain going into this, and this is what the U.S. had assessed. First, that Russia had the massively superior military and the armed forces built up around Ukraine, and that Ukraine's military might not be able to hold out all that long. Whether that's days or weeks is unclear, and the Pentagon wasn't going to get into how this was going for the Russians. But the other thing that was clear was that if the Russians chose to become an occupying force after this invasion, the Ukrainians would put up one hell of a fight.
That audio courtesy of CNN. Let's go live now to Emeritus Professor at Monash University, Marko Pavlichin, an expert in Ukrainian studies. Professor, good afternoon. We have seen extraordinary developments from Ukraine in the past 48 hours. Now, some experts say this could become the largest conflict in Europe since World War II. The next 48 hours, they're going to be crucial. How is this going to play out?
Everything depends on the next 24 hours. So far, the Ukrainian forces have been remarkably successful in slowing down the Russian defense. But the Russian attack has come from the north, from the east, and from the south. It's focusing on Kyiv right now. And the assumption is that the intention of the attackers is to take over the Kyiv administrative center, to remove the present government, and to install a puppet regime which will find it easy to communicate with Vladimir Putin and give him the conditions of surrender that doubtless he wants. But of course, the city has to be taken yet, and the resistance from the regular Ukrainian army has been extremely strong so far. Furthermore, should it occur that Kyiv is taken, there will indeed, as American Secretary of State Blinken has said, there will be a very serious, protracted, and no doubt bloody insurgency.
As we heard, Scott Morrison has condemned the invasion and announced further sanctions against Russia, the European Union too just now. Will heavier sanctions from us and others stop Moscow?
It is unlikely that heavier sanctions will have an immediate effect on the development of the military campaign that is currently underway. But sanctions are a way of signaling to the world that the West, that countries which respect the international legal order will not sit idly by and allow international conventions to be flaunted, will not take easily to a powerful state conquering a weaker state just because it wishes to do so. And sanctions are an important punishment, both for the aggressor country and in the way that they are being applied now for the decision-making individuals who are responsible for the details of this invasion.
All right, well,
It should have.
So sorry to interrupt you there, Marco. We'll leave it there this afternoon. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's been an outpouring of support for Australia's Ukrainian community, watching on as their family and friends come to terms with what's happening. Melbourne's landmarks have been lit up in support, turning in blue and yellow overnight. Later, we'll speak to a leader from Melbourne's Ukrainian community on how people are seeking shelter and the feeling on the ground over there right now. The White House has imposed fresh sanctions on Russia as the bloodshed in Ukraine continues. Live now to US Bureau Chief Ashley Mullaney. Ash, there's no military intervention from Joe Biden at the moment. Is there any indication this could change?
Good afternoon, Beck. At this stage, no. Joe Biden this afternoon reaffirmed that he wouldn't be sending US troops into Ukraine. He has, however, deployed another 7,000 troops to Germany to bolster forces in NATO countries. The US president condemning Russia's actions, describing it as a brutal assault on Ukraine. Joe Biden announcing further sanctions on Russian banks, 4 Russian banks that have had their assets frozen, more than $1 trillion of assets frozen. He has also restricted exports of technology goods into Russia this evening, clearly looking to make an international pariah of Vladimir Putin. The US president speaking today. Let's take a listen.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen.
As Joe Biden deals with this crisis, his predecessor Donald Trump has weighed in from the sidelines with a statement: if I were in office, this deadly Ukraine situation would not have happened. As the situation deteriorates in Ukraine, the Pentagon has warned that Vladimir Putin is looking to decapitate the Ukrainian government. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken was asked tonight, does he believe that Vladimir Putin is looking to overthrow the Ukrainian government? He said yes, he believes that's exactly what he's trying to do. Beck?
Ash Mullaney, thank you. Back home now, Aussie cricket legend Rod Marsh is fighting for life in hospital after suffering a heart attack. The 74-year-old former Australia wicket-keeper was in Queensland for a charity event
Obviously
when
just
he
wish
collapsed.
back his best. We've been trying to stay abreast as much as we can of the information and, kind of all hit everyone yesterday.
His family is rushing to Queensland to be by his side. Up next, a former soldier who ambushed the Lost Dogs home looking for his cat learns his fate. Plus, Michael O'Brien's surprise return and how children can get their COVID jabs at the zoo. Back soon after this short break. An ex-army reservist who staged a military-style ambush on the Lost Dogs home has been sentenced to 6 years jail. Tony Whitman held a fake gun to an employee's head before demanding she take him to his cat. He then bound the young woman's wrists with cable ties but left empty-handed. The father of 4 then attended the same shelter the next day, where he was recognised from CCTV footage. The court heard Whitman's victim now suffers from PTSD. Former opposition leader Michael O'Brien has made a surprise return to the front bench after a coalition reshuffle. The member for Melbourne has been named as the Liberals' new Shadow Attorney General.
Michael knows that portfolio back to front. I couldn't think of someone better to actually come in and do the job.
He's taken over from Matt Back, who spent just 4 months in the role. The push to get more vaccines into arms is ramping up, with medical teams visiting homes and zoos joining the kids' vaccine rollout. Buses are also travelling around Melbourne, operating as mobile vaccination hubs. Nick McCallum has more.
This community vaccination bus is one of the latest measures to help boost our vaccination rates as we head into autumn. Parked at the Monash Civic Centre, the mobile hub helps busy supermarket worker Brandon Rich fit in his third shot between shifts.
Been working a lot, so having it so accessible has been really good.
For children in particular, home injection services are being expanded. It helps reduce anxiety for 5-year-old William.
Better because I had all my family.
Almost 55% of 5 to 11-year-olds have had one injection, way below expectations. Just 1% of kids that age are double dosed. To hurry that along, pop-up injection hubs tomorrow at Werribee Zoo and Healesville Sanctuary.
Any kids 5 to 11 can sign up, and we'll also do family boosters at the same time as well.
57.6% of those over 18 have now had 3 doses. 6,580 new cases today, sadly 11 deaths. 301 people are in hospital with COVID, 38 in intensive care. Work from home recommendations end at midnight, so companies like Carlisle Homes are going to extraordinary lengths to entice workers back into the office with games, expansive recreational areas and desks 1.8 metres apart.
Hopefully with the additional benefits of this space, it'll be an easy transition come Monday to come back.
But still, they'll settle into a home office hybrid.
3 days in the office, 2 days at home.
And this bus will cater for footy fans tomorrow night, Melbourne versus North Melbourne in the AFLW at Casey Fields.
Nick McCallum, thank you. Sport is coming up after the break, with the AFL granted approval for a footy first. Also, an emotional night at the Bombers with 4 new legends announced. And later, the lucky town sharing the Powerball jackpot. Stay with us on 7 News. Live from Melbourne, you're watching 7's Afternoon News. 21 degrees outside right now. Jane Bunn will be here with the forecast a little later in the hour. But Andrew McCormack is here right now with sport. Andrew, a first in the AFL today.
There is, Beck. Collingwood's Mason Cox has been granted approval by the AFL to wear prescription glasses during games this season. Having dealt with several eye injuries, the Magpie forward will test it out in today's pre-season clash with the Hawks. Meanwhile, Callum Coleman-Jones had scans on his knee today, admitting he was concerned in yesterday's clash with the Demons.
Yeah, a little bit. I just landed a bit and I was trying to get down the line and take off. I couldn't really straighten my leg and run, so I was a bit worried about it then because I never really had anything like that before. But yeah, the docs weren't too concerned after the game, so that was good.
Meanwhile, up on the Gold Coast, the Lions thumped the Crows by 88 points at Metricon Stadium. Still on footy, and there were emotional scenes last night as the Bombers elevated Neil Daniher to legend status at their Hall of Fame function. The inspirational leader shared the stage with his 3 brothers. What a great photo that is. Daniher was the Bombers' youngest ever captain in 1982. He was honoured alongside Gavin Wanganeen, Dustin Fletcher and club doctor Bruce Reid, who were also unveiled as club legends. To cricket, and Australian Test captain Pat Cummins says it's been a seamless transition of coaches after the departure of Justin Langer. The Aussie squad has been in a quarantine bubble here in Melbourne before flying out tomorrow for the tour of Pakistan, where Andrew McDonald will take the reins as the interim coach once again.
With all good intentions, I think when there's speculation, it does make it a little bit harder. So, yeah, we've just fully focused and excited on this tour. There's been really no other chat other than just excited to get started.
Victorian Scott Boland could lose his place in the Aussie Test 11 with Cummins, Stark and Josh Hazlewood all in line and fit and firing for the first test next week. After a record 361 weeks at the top, Novak Djokovic has lost his #1 ranking following a shock straight sets loss to world number 123 Yuri Vesely in the quarterfinals of the Dubai Championships. Russian star Daniil Medvedev will replace him as world #1 next week. the first player other than Djokovic, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal or Andy Murray to top the rankings since 2004. Meanwhile, Alexander Zverev has been fined $56,000. He'll lose all the ATP ranking points he earned in Mexico for smashing his racket on the umpire's chair following that doubles loss. And Daniel Ricciardo has made a statement as he hit the track for the first time this year. The 32-year-old Aussie clocked the fastest time in the morning session of Formula One's pre-season testing in Barcelona, finishing the day in third. It comes just a day after his McLaren teammate Lando Norris set the pace in the opening session. In fact, that is all for a pretty busy Arvo and Sport. We'll be live to Morwell tonight. The Pies and the Hawks. There'll be a big crowd out there.
Who's there?
Tommy Brown's up there for us. Of course, Mason Cox in his glasses, giving them a run. But all the big names from the Pies and the Hawks will have every bit covered on 7 News at 6 o'clock.
We will indeed. Thank you very much, Macca. Well, the $126 million Powerball jackpot has been split in two. A syndicate of 250 people in Kalgoorlie, Western Australia, is sharing in half the profits, winning just over $250,000 each. And a Coffs Harbour man has claimed the other $63 million prize. He says he wants to buy a sports car, why wouldn't you? And a house. Good luck to him. Up next, we return to Ukraine with reports the capital Kiev is coming under missile attack as we go to air. We'll cross live to Lviv in Western Ukraine for the very latest. That's just ahead. Plus, the Western world hits Russia with new tough sanctions. A warning over terrifying near misses at Melbourne train stations. And concerns for the Queen's health deepen as she cancels more engagements. We're back in just over 2 minutes.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7 Afternoon News with Rebecca Madden.
Welcome back. As we go to air, the situation in Ukraine is rapidly deteriorating. There are reports of heavy missile fire in the capital. Now, this is a live look at Kiev. Top Biden officials say Russian forces are closing in with the intention of circling the city and potentially toppling the Ukrainian government. Let's go live now to senior reporter Jeff Parry in Lviv, Ukraine. Jeff, it's an increasingly volatile situation there.
It certainly is, Beck, increasingly grim, and it's getting grimmer. The US intelligence, which correctly predicted that Vladimir Putin would send Russian troops into Ukraine just a few hours before he did it, now says an attack on the capital Kiev is imminent. There have been a lot of explosions over the last several hours. It's a city of 3 million people. It's where the Ukrainian government is situated. It's where the Ukrainian military has its headquarters. They are, of course, number one target of the Russian forces, but it's also where Vladimir Putin's number one target is, Ukrainian President Zelensky. A few grim statistics for you, Beck. 137 people, both civilian and military on the Ukraine side, died in the first 24 hours of this war. 360 were wounded, but the Russians certainly haven't had it all their own way. The Russian invasion started before dawn with an artillery barrage and quickly became a full-scale air and land assault. Russian gunships swooping in on a military airbase near the capital, Kiev. Above the city, 2 Ukrainian fighter jets raced towards the battle. At least one Russian helicopter was shot down, and in the afternoon, Russian airborne troops were spotted on the outskirts of the airbase, apparently in control.
And it has not been taken back by the Ukrainian military. It is the Russian military. You can see them now moving back to a different position.
Elsewhere, 3 columns of armour drove deep wedges into Ukrainian territory from the north, the northeast and the south, all marked with a white painted Z as a mark of recognition. But it is clear the Russians have not had it all their own way. Ukrainian troops have taken out Russian tanks, pictures of burning Russian armour appearing from across the country. The Ukrainian president has addressed the nation.
What we're hearing today, it's the sound of a new Iron Curtain descending, cutting Russia off from the civilized world. It is our task as a nation to make sure that this Iron Curtain doesn't pass through our Ukrainian territory.
Late yesterday, as he launched the war, Putin hinted at the use of nuclear weapons.
Whoever tries to interfere with us, and even more so to create threats for our country, for our people, should know that Russia's response will be immediate and will lead you to such consequences that you have never encountered in your history.
Military observers say Russia has launched at least 100 missile attacks. This is the remains of a radar station near the Black Sea coast in the south of the country. Here, a cruise missile streaks across the sky to strike a Ukrainian airbase near Lviv. Long lines of traffic have choked Ukraine's major highways as civilians try to flee to safety.
A Ukraine defence spokesman said that airport that the Russians claim to have captured is now back in Ukraine hands after a counter-attack. That airport is strategically important to the Russians for an attack on the capital, Kiev. And after some fierce fighting, it appears that Russian tanks have taken control in the Chernobyl area of that old derelict Chernobyl nuclear power station. And in the process, they're holding people hostages. Rick?
Much for bringing us up to date. You'll be doing so again at 6 p.m. Thank you. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has vowed to hit President Putin and the Russian oligarchs hard in the hip pocket, ensuring they can no longer launder money through Britain. He says President Putin has blood on his hands. Europe Bureau Chief Hugh Whitfeld reports.
Downing Street says these measures are designed to push the Russian economy into recession, and they are much fiercer than the package of sanctions announced by Boris Johnson earlier in the week. The British Prime Minister telling the House of Commons that Russian gas and oil will be cut off to Britain. Russian banks won't be able to access the pound, and the Russian airline Aeroflot will be banned from British airports and airspace. And the government is targeting 100 individuals and entities, limiting the amount that Russians can deposit in UK banks, saying that oligarchs will be targeted. Boris Johnson using blistering language to describe the Russian president as a blood-stained aggressor.
For this, Putin will stand condemned in the eyes of the world and of history. He will never be able to cleanse the blood of Ukraine from his hands.
There is concern in Europe too that Vladimir Putin may go further than just invading Ukraine. He may be trying to recreate the old USSR, and that would put NATO member states, including Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, at risk of an invasion. NATO is sending thousands more troops to its eastern flank, trying to bolster its defences.
Peace on our continent has been shattered. We now have war in Europe on a scale and of a type we thought belonged to history.
It is President Putin who is bringing war back to Europe. And in these dark hours, the European Union and its people stand by Ukraine and its people.
There have been anti-war demonstrations here in London outside Downing Street and in Russia in at least 39 cities. Thousands of people taking to the streets to protest against Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. They are clearly very brave, because anyone who opposes Vladimir Putin's policies and his regime in Russia is often met by security forces, and hundreds of people have been detained.
The attack on Ukraine is raising major concerns about global supply chains, including for us here in Australia. Melbourne At is the Chief Executive of Shipping Australia. Good afternoon. We've already seen some problems because the pandemic, obviously. How does war potentially make these things even worse?
Firstly, can I say thanks for having me on? Yeah, and can I say in relation to the activities in Ukraine and Russia overnight, can I assure your viewers that there is no need to panic for goods coming to Australia? The goods coming to Australia, we do not have a very large market to that part of the world. So all I would say is there is no need to panic. Supply of goods and supply of goods, the flow of goods to Australian shelves will continue. Having said that, there are a couple of exporters from Australia that do trade with the Ukraine, and they are putting some of the shipments to that part of the world, especially to Russia, on hold due to uncertainty. And our shipping lines are actually working with the shippers in Australia to actually manage the change of destinations.
Melbourne, so just to clarify that, items and goods that are on ships right now, there'll be no delay in those coming to Australia?
Meaning, as far as we can understand, our members are still carrying on their services. Services to Ukraine have been redirected to other ports. There is no immediate concern at the moment.
Okay, talk to me about the price of crude oil, because when that goes up, is that going to have a significant impact on the prices of goods here?
Yeah, I think when you look at like these type of activities around the world, and especially war, it does have a global impact across. And yes, we will have some sort of an impact in terms of the prices. The prices have already gone up from when I last checked, I think it was about 800 USD. And so I think it will have a slight impact on the cost of fuel and impact on fuel that is used for ships to actually come here. So we may see a slight impact locally in terms of those prices.
Melbourne, Noronha, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Rebecca. Take care.
Melbourne's Ukrainian community is terrified for their friends and family stuck overseas. Many are struggling to get in touch with loved ones and have no way of sending money that can actually be withdrawn from ATMs. Here's Jodie Lee.
Well, there are some 40,000 people of Ukrainian heritage living in Australia, the majority right here in Victoria. For many of them, they faced a sleepless night last night, worrying about friends and family now stuck and under threat in the region. I'm joined now by Liana Slopetsky from the Association of Ukrainians here in Victoria. Liana, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
How are members of our Ukrainian community feeling seeing these pictures coming out of the region?
Just in disbelief. I know many of us have had sleepless nights and trying to contact family and friends. We're angry, we're upset, we're worried, and just wondering how this is all going to play out and how it's all going to end.
What are your friends and family on the ground saying about the situation there?
Well, Ukrainians are stoic. You know, one thing that Putin doesn't realise, we might not be a match for their military, but he doesn't understand the patriotism of Ukraine. They will stand and fight, they will stay. But look, if your house is being bombed, what are you going to do? Most of them are staying put and they're fleeing to villages where it's safer, where there might be cellars or bunkers or, some kind of safe haven for them.
We know that many of them have been unable to withdraw money from ATMs. How are you and fellow members of the community able to support them from here in Melbourne?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, my relative in Eastern Ukraine, she works in a bank. She's been told she's not going to work. She can't even get money out. So what I did was I said, if you need to get out, I'll find an Airbnb for you. We'll pay for it. I will get plane tickets for them, whatever it takes. I've told them that the Australian government is, easing up the visa process if it comes to that. But again, this is what happened to my grandparents and people of their age. They escaped to Germany and they sat there for 2 or 3 years in immigrant camps waiting to go back. I hope it's not going to repeat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As you heard, there's so many people on the ground who are under threat, but with family and friend connections here in Australia, we'll have those details of how Australians can contribute to the humanitarian efforts in Ukraine on the 7 News website.
Thank you very much, Jodie. It is indeed a really awful situation. The Queen has postponed another 2 virtual engagements as her COVID symptoms persist. Now, Buckingham Palace says the meetings will be rescheduled and the 95-year-old will continue with light duties for the week. The Queen held her weekly call with the British Prime Minister yesterday and is still reported to be feeling mild cold-like symptoms. Up next, why bars can now open longer and there'll be more takeaway alcohol. And the hunt for a prize Ferrari stolen from a Melbourne home. We'll have much more coming up in just a few minutes. Bars and restaurants will soon be able to stay open later without applying for a new liquor licence in a bid to revive the struggling CBD. Let's go live to Rochelle Brown at Southbank this afternoon. Rochelle, take us through the details.
Beck, they can now extend their hours from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. any night of the week without having to deal with any of the red tape. Under the changes, licensed restaurants and cafes can also sell a limited amount of alcohol with takeaway orders or home delivery meals. It comes with an extra protection for minors as well, including strict rules around verifying the age and ID of first-time customers. Licensees can also apply for fast-track approval to serve liquor outdoors and will receive an answer within 3 business days. The move follows growing concern about Melbourne's once vibrant hospitality scene and goes hand in hand with the state government scrapping the work from home recommendation from tonight. The new measures will come into effect from next month. Beck?
Okay, terrific work. Thank you. Well, thieves have stolen a luxury car worth more than $250,000 from a home in Kew. The burglars broke into the property and stole the 1998 Ferrari in late January. Anyone who sees this vehicle is urged to contact police. Drivers and pedestrians are warned to remain extra vigilant around railway crossings after a number of near misses and collisions. Vision has emerged of motorists speeding through crossings, failure to stop at flashing lights and vehicles stopping on the tracks. Risk-taking motorists could face fines of more than $3,500. 2 people have been killed as wild storms sweep through southern Queensland, cutting off towns. That's just ahead. Plus, iconic ballet Anna Karenina arrives in Melbourne. And later, Jane Bunn has the latest on Victoria's weather. Back soon here on 7. Deadly storms in southern Queensland have claimed 2 lives and many towns are surrounded by floodwaters. A slow-moving system dumped a month's worth of rain over several hours. Emergency services have rescued multiple drivers caught out by flash flooding.
There was literally one puddle, sweetie, one puddle there. Thought fine, went up, parked. 5 hours later, woke up to keep going. Water everywhere.
In Toowoomba, the central business district is underwater. Let's take a quick look at Melbourne's roads now.
Good afternoon, it's Hayley in the Makona traffic chopper. Spotted a broken down or abandoned scooter on the Tullamarine Freeway heading outbound just near the Moonee Valley Race Course, being picked up at the moment. The left-hand lane is closed with speeds reduced. Feeling like you can't get a break from your 9 to 5? Why not make a little me time with Makona and enjoy a coffee moment to yourself? Makona, the perfect coffee to start every day. Have a lovely afternoon and enjoy your weekend.
After a year of COVID interruptions, the Australian Ballet is returning with a special series of performances. The award-winning Anna Karenina opens tonight at the Arts Centre. It's part of last year's postponed program, finally hitting the stage in 2022. Here's our own little ballerina now. Time for an update on the weather. Here's Jane Bunn.
Thank you very much, Beck. It reminds me of my childhood. Now, Melbourne has taken a short break from the high humidity, but it is sweeping back in tonight and will stick with us all weekend. The city, so far today, it has only reached 21.7 as cloud covered the Melbourne area this morning. Then it broke up to sunshine this afternoon as promised. It is warmer in outer eastern suburbs, 26 in Yarra Glen, 23 in Scoresby and Watsonia. There is a trough over eastern Victoria. That's separating showers and storms on the eastern side of that from dry weather to its west. The steady rain that is flooding Australia's east coast is also coming around the corner into East Gippsland, where it's very wet there right now. A high to our south pushes moist air into the eastern states and troughs turn that into rain and thunderstorms. This is a very persistent pattern that just keeps the rain coming. Then the high to the south, that will change shape early next week, letting the rain spread further into Victoria. So the rain keeps coming in for East Gippsland overnight and it spreads to more parts of Gippsland tomorrow. Showers and thunderstorms develop to the remaining east and north. Wet weather continues to spread across Gippsland on Sunday, but we'll see a new area of rain develop in the west of the state later. Then early next week it is Victoria's turn. Yes, still hit and miss showers and thunderstorms, but there's areas of widespread rain in there too. We've had quite a dry February with a lack of low pressure, and this rain isn't nearly as heavy as what is happening up to our north, so this should be quite welcome as most areas are likely to get a drink from this one. Around the nation tomorrow, heavy rain does continue in southeast Queensland. That's for the 5th day running. Still wetting Sydney and Canberra, lots of showers and the risk of thunderstorms. In Hobart, it's a cloudy Saturday but generally dry, warm and sunny in Adelaide and Perth. To Victoria, there are areas of rain over Gippsland and just coming into the Otways thanks to southeasterly winds and the far northeast as well. For the rest, lots of sunshine until showers and thunderstorms redevelop in the north, and there is the potential for heavy falls, particularly near the ranges. So in Melbourne, it's a warm and humid Saturday. Expect lots of sunshine out there tomorrow. The temperature will rise up to a top of 27. Now, there is the slight risk of a late afternoon storm. That's only in outer northern suburbs. The rest are in the clear, and it looks the same for Sunday too, Beck.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane. Thank you. Now let's check in with Peter Mitchell, who's getting ready for 7 News at 6.
Thanks, Beck. At 6, we talk exclusively to a Melbourne mother desperately racing to get into Ukraine to save her premature baby.
We're going to Ukraine. We're not staying in Poland. We're going to Ukraine. Like, how can you put her in a war zone but you're not there?
Also, a rally is due to begin shortly in the city in support of Ukraine. We'll have a live report from Federation Square. A Melbourne man's legal nightmare in Singapore after hurling a wine bottle from a high-rise balcony. And the community that cleaned up in Powerball last night. They are $60 million richer. All those stories and more coming up at 6. Beck.
Lucky them, and that's all from Melbourne's afternoon news. Thank you very much for joining us. For now, from the 7 News team, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.